Welcome to another FPL video. We're going to be looking ahead to game week 10 with the preview. So in here, I'm going to be going through the fixtures, talking about the best captaincy options, the 5 best, going over the latest injury updates and all the news there that we have so far, and my updated team selection, as well as the best free hit team you can make specifically for game week 10. So without further ado, let's head straight into the video. So starting off with Leicester against Arsenal as the early kickoff, and of course the big news will be about Jamie Vardy. We're going to be getting, or hopefully we're going to be getting, more confirmation by Brendan Rodgers later today ahead of their Carabao Cup tie. So that's going to be the kind of main talking point. Nothing else really here to talk about other than Ben White, who actually against Leeds came off, but it wasn't because of an injury, it was actually because of a bug, which also Pablo Mari has contracted as well. But he should be fine for game week 10, and if not, definitely ahead of game week 11. And then Burnley against Brentford here. Definitely the big news is that Raya, the goalkeeper, is out for 4 months, and it kind of came out of nowhere, but it was as a result of the game against Leicester and the collision he had. So unfortunately, it looks like Raya's going to be out for several months, and now maybe one of the kind of backup goalkeepers at Brentford is the one to go for. I'll be talking about that later on actually in the best free hit team. And then Liverpool against Brighton, not much really to talk about here of note, but it was interesting to see Jota actually get a start against Manchester United, and he got 11 points, so his first double-digit haul of the season. And then Manchester City against Crystal Palace. With Pep and Manchester City, it's always kind of a minefield in terms of who's going to start and who gets benched. Hopefully, the lineup we see later today kind of confirms some of the key players like Foden are going to be rested ahead of the Premier League game against Crystal Palace. So hopefully we can get some good news there, like we did with Chelsea to a certain extent yesterday. And then Newcastle against Chelsea, the Blues actually rested quite a few players in that game, including Chilwell. Mason Mount didn't start the game. He did miss a penalty, but it didn't matter. They still went through against Southampton. So some good news, I'd say, with Chelsea. Havertz scored actually. So a lot of his owners will be hoping he can replicate that in the Premier League. And then we have Watford against Southampton with Broja. Nothing really, I think, that has been stated. I've been doing a bit of digging and everything, but I think some people are optimistic that he's going to be fit ahead of game week 10, but of course I wouldn't want to make any promises there. Let's wait and see. If any of you know the situation with him, then comment it down below. And of course we'll be getting to the very big news with Rafinha very soon. Spurs against Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to remain in charge, which is very interesting, but any defeat from now on is really just going to mount the pressure at this point. So it should be a good one, a really good game. Both teams struggling, I'd say, both on similar points. Nothing really here of note in terms of injuries and all of that. So let's wait and see what happens there. But here, Norwich against Leeds. So Marcelo Bielsa, and I actually watched a press conference as well. I came back from the stadium and I watched the press conference. So Bielsa was asked if Shackleton or Rafinha had anything that was going to impede them potentially from playing at the weekend. And Bielsa said, "We believe not," obviously in Spanish, and it was translated. But that's what he said. That was his literal words. And it looks like, based on his comments, he's very optimistic that they should be fine. It's not a guarantee though, and he did say "we believe." So maybe some new medical reports or scans will actually reveal something else, but for the time being it's looking very optimistic, and based on his comments I'd say Rafinha will be fit enough to be in the squad and probably start from the get-go against Norwich. So that's kind of the news we have so far. If anything changes, of course, then we'll see. But for the time being, I think it should be good. And then we have Aston Villa against West Ham. Once again, nothing really here of note, but it should be a good game. And yeah, it should be very interesting for a lot of us who own Antonio. He could actually be in for a big haul. And then Wolves against Everton, once again with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The kind of news we got a week or so ago is that he's going to be out for several more weeks, probably after the international break. So not really looking good for him. Richarlison's back, of course, and he did score against his former club Watford. And let's see how that impacts Townsend. Of course, Decore is another kind of long-term absentee. and then with Wolves, nothing really. Jimenez got back into the side, so fatigue wasn't an issue, and he got an assist in the end for Hwang. So that's pretty much a roundup of all the kind of fixtures and the latest injury news and updates that we have so far. If I've missed anything, then be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, including Broja, of course, which would be a very interesting one. A lot of people are considering going for him. And before I move on to the updated team selection and everything, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has hit the subscribe button. We've reached 7,000, and around this time last year, we just about hit the 1,000 mark. So very much appreciated, and same with all the new channel members and all the channel members in general. So Wanja, Rock and Roll, The Flying Dutchman, Yarang, so many of you, John Granquist, thank you so much, and of course Kenny Silvera, our newest member, so very much appreciated, and of course more content coming to the channel, including live streams. But I have to say a massive shout out to all the members, everyone who subscribed, and if you haven't already, smash the like button if you enjoy this sort of content or find it useful. Now let's go on straight to my updated team selection. So I did take the hit, remember, as I discussed in that video, but no changes from that. I'm going to keep the captaincy the same on Salah. I'm not going to overcomplicate that for sure. And the vice captaincy will be on Phil Foden, I believe, unless I get an inclination that he might not start at the weekend if he plays the full 90 today, for example. And with Rafinha, I'm a bit more confident. Let's see what happens with Jamie Vardy. But my, I'd say, gut feeling is that he will be fit in time to play Arsenal, and he loves playing against the Gunners. He hasn't scored against any other club more so than he has against Mikel Arteta's side. So yeah, that should be very good for all of us Arsenal fans. But the rest will pretty much stay the same. What I would say though, I did go to the game, Arsenal against Leeds, and Leno was very impressive. But still, I'd expect Ramsdale to continue to start, and it's healthy competition with the Arsenal squad at the moment. But Ramsdale should stay in between the sticks. If he doesn't, it's not the worst thing in the world, I'd say, because Foster, if he does start in Game Week 10, which he should, he could be decent cover against Southampton, although it's not ideal. But the rest of my team will look pretty much identical. I'm not really looking to make any transfers at the moment. I might actually wait a week or two before making my next transfer. But yeah, not really too much I would change. Maybe Heung-min Son in the midfield and one or two other changes. But happy with the front line and happy with everyone else, assuming they're all fit. Let's see what we get with Jamie Vardy, but that's pretty much the updates there. Because I made the transfer so early, not many changes like there was last week when I actually did the updated team selection and preview. So that's pretty much it. And now we're going to be showing you the best free hit team, and then I'll be showing you or talking about the top 5 captains for the week after looking at the fixtures once again. So because Raya is out for 4 months, I would suggest going for the backup goalkeeper at the moment for Brentford, Fernandes, because another goalkeeper actually for Brentford is also injured. So he pretty much has no competition at the moment. So I would go for him, and it should be an interesting one. Obviously not a really, I'd say, orthodox pick, but still, I think he could be a good option. Still has the good fixture against Burnley. It's not the greatest. I think Burnley could score a goal. But around that price bracket, Ramsdale's facing, for example, Leicester. Then you have Sanchez facing Liverpool, and then of course Raya is injured. So I would go with Fernandes and Foster as your backup. If you have enough money and you're on a free hit and you just want the best of the best, then I would recommend either Ederson, Edouard Mendy or Alisson, and I'd probably go with Edouard Mendy. I think he has the highest ceiling because of the saves and all of that. And now looking at the defence, I think Chilwell, speaking of ceiling, he's got the highest of any defender, arguably, you know, other than Trent and maybe Cancelo, but he's just in such great form at the moment. He's scoring every single game. I don't expect that to continue, but I think he can do well against Newcastle. I still think actually the Toon could notch a goal, despite how poor they've been offensively, defensively, and just as our overall unit. But I think that Newcastle could actually snatch a goal. And then Trent Alexander-Arnold, a very good option this week. You could even captain him, but with the form Salah is in, you probably wouldn't want to. But yeah, Trent is a very good choice, and I'd have him on a free hit, wildcard, normal team, whatever it is, to be honest. And then Joao Cancelo, if he starts, which he should, I think he's just the best from the City defenders because he has the highest ceiling, and he's just in such great form at the moment. He's got like the most touches, the most passes amongst defenders. So he's really, really important to how Manchester City play. So I definitely recommend the Portuguese right back, and I think he could be a really good choice this week, just like with most, to be honest, especially with the form City are in. And then I'd actually go for Rudiger. Now I'll explain why, because if I'm being completely honest, I'd be more confident in a City clean sheet. So a double up of Diaz and Cancelo would be better, but there is a reason why I have Rudiger instead. Of course, he's got a bit more attacking threat, I'd say, than Diaz, but ideally I do admit I would prefer Diaz in this best free hit team. Then we've got Livramento as the kind of best budget option you can go for, with Ben White, who is ill technically, and of course does face Leicester. Duffy has lost his place and he's playing Liverpool anyway, so Livramento is the pick of the bunch. And then looking at the midfield, Douglas Luiz doesn't matter, you can go for anyone you want. If you need the money, just go for Brownhill. And then Rafinha, assuming he's fit, which based on Marcelo Bielsa's comments, he should be. I think against Norwich he could have a really big score. Then again though, this season we haven't seen too much from an FPL perspective at least to indicate that the Brazilian will do really well and get double digits. He hasn't done that so far this season, but I think Rafinha is still a really good choice. Anyone playing Norwich, especially on that right hand side like Sarr did a few weeks ago, I think could be in for a big haul. Mohamed Salah, just a no-brainer. He's pretty much going to be in this probably every single week until we kind of see a decline or a regression in terms of the underlying stats or just his overall performances. And then Phil Foden is my City midfielder of choice. Of course, if he does start and play the full 90 today, then that might change. But for the time being, I'd prefer him over Mason Mount, Kai Havertz and everyone else around his price, even Diego Jota, who is also now in the mix once again. But Phil Foden could be a really good differential captain if you're not looking to back Salah, and to be honest, why would you actually go against him at the moment? And then I'm actually going for Kai Havertz. Obviously, he did score in the Carabao Cup, and he was really poor in the Premier League. He hasn't really shown much in terms of his league performances, but I would go for him. If not, just go for Mason Mount. Of course, he's got a bit more proven Premier League form at the moment, but Kai Havertz, I think I have a good feeling about him against Newcastle, and I think he could do really well. But just go with either Chelsea midfielder on a free hit, in my opinion. And then looking at the front line, I think it's very simple this week. We've got Ivan Toney, and I think this is the week where he finally gets those returns which he deserves. And at his price, he is still, in my opinion, the best. There is also Hwang, who is giving him a run for his money. Also Brocha. But for me, Ivan Toney is now going to start showing you why he's actually worth it. And maybe he doesn't deserve as much of the hype as he has been getting because of his championship form last season, but still he's a good option, solid at his price, and I think he'll start justifying his price tag. Now, this is the reason why I don't have Diaz in this team over Rudiger, which, as I said before, that would be my preference. Obviously, remember, you can only have 3 players from a certain team. We've already got Cancelo, Foden, and Gabriel Jesus, who, in my opinion, if he does start, which I think he will, he should be one of the best options this week. And Aubameyang's facing Leicester, Vardy is an injury doubt, and he faces Arsenal. You have Harry Kane play Manchester United, and he's very expensive, of course. So if you do have him, you'd have to downgrade someone else in this team. But to be fair, what I would say though is that you have 4 really good defenders, you've got 4 good midfielders and 3 good strikers, so you have to bench one of them anyway. So what you could do, if you do back Harry Kane to do well against Manchester United, you could actually go for him up front and then downgrade one of those defenders or midfielders. So that's what I would say, and I can completely understand that. But I think Gabriel Jesus, if he does start, he could do really well. And if it isn't him starting, then Mahrez taking his place could be in for a really big haul. Of course, Mahrez is very explosive, a very talented player, one of the most talented in the league. But Gabriel Jesus, I think, has been really impressive for Manchester City, mainly getting assists. He's got 2 goals and 5 assists so far this season, but I think he could do pretty well. If I had to pick one Man City player, other than Cancelo, I'd probably go for Foden, especially in the midfield and attack. But then if you're looking for a differential, I think Gabriel Jesus could be that this week. And then we have Mikel Antonio. Now, Aston Villa doesn't look like the best fixture on paper, to be honest, but if you see their defensive stats over the last 4 game weeks, they actually have the worst in terms of expected goals conceded, and some of the other underlying defensive numbers, they're right near the bottom, and they've actually conceded the most goals, I think, or one of the most. Of course, in the last 2 games, they have conceded 6. They were 2-0 up against Wolves, then obviously they lost that game 3-2, and then against Arsenal they conceded 3, and as I said in my team selection video and my reaction stream, I think it should have been by more. I think Arsenal were far better than the Villains, but Mikel Antonio, I think he could do damage here. Obviously, he got 7 points against Spurs. Not the greatest score in the world, but of course, very much welcome, especially at the time when I was struggling to get points myself. But I think Antonio could do really well this week. But if not this, Benrahma, Bowen, Fornals, one of these other West Ham attackers, they could do pretty well too, but I would probably just go for Antonio. I think he is the best West Ham player at the moment, so I'd definitely go for him. And that concludes the best free hit team. What would you change? Like I said before, I'd probably go for Diaz in there for Rudiger potentially, and maybe go for one of those kind of premium strikers. Maybe Jamie Vardy if he is confirmed fit. He loves playing against Arsenal in place of Jesus, and then downgrading one of the midfielders or defenders, and then just, picking your formation from there. Now, looking at the top 5 captaincy options this week, it'll be no surprise who is number 1. But at number 5, I've actually got Havertz, and if not Mount. Obviously, it's up to you who you pick. But I think one of those two options, like I said last week with Foden or De Bruyne, they could do really well. And you'd probably back Mount based on what we've seen in the Premier League. But Havertz, don't forget about him, don't underestimate him, and definitely don't sell him ahead of this week. Don't rage transfer him out. I think he could do really well. And then at number 4, I've actually got Trent Alexander-Arnold. It could easily be Cancelo, it could be Chilwell. All of them are great options, but I think Trent is probably the most likely, or second most likely to get a clean sheet. I'd say Cancelo's a bit more likely, but in terms of attacking returns, Trent just has that explosiveness, so I would go for Trent. But if not, you could just go for Cancelo, one of those fullbacks, Chilwell too. At number 3, I've got Mikel Antonio. Talking about Aston Villa's poor defensive form, the underlying numbers, West Ham have been very impressive. They've been scoring a lot of goals, and even when they don't, they only score 1 or 2 in a game, they still manage to get the ball at the back of the net, and Antonio's a big part of that. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I think he's one of the best options this week. And of course, let me know who you would go for instead. I know some of these options you might not be too keen on, especially for the captaincy. In number 2, I'd go for Phil Foden. I think he could be in for a really big haul. If he doesn't start, and it's De Bruyne, for example, in that false 9, then of course the same applies to him. And I talked about this obviously in last week's preview. But Foden, if he does start, I think he could be a big part of Manchester City's goals. And he's just such a talented player, and he's making that next big step, I think, in his career, and he can actually now start to cement himself as one of the most important players for City, not just in the Champions League and in the Carabao Cup, but also in the Premier League, which is the bread and butter, of course, of what Manchester City are aiming to do. And then at number 1, no surprises here, we've got Mohamed Salah. He is by far the best captaincy option this week, I think. And with the form he's in, he can make it 11 games in a row that he scored in. He could break the Premier League record of the most consecutive games scored in, which Jamie Vardy obviously holds at the moment after breaking Van Nistelrooy's record back in 2016, I believe. So, yeah, I think Salah is the one to go for. And I'm not going to be overcomplicating it. Foden is my vice-captain at the moment. And, of course, they are all good captaincy options in their own right. If you have a good feeling about someone and you're not really feeling sure about Salah, then, go for it, of course. It's up to you how you play the game. But personally, I would just recommend going for Salah and not overcomplicating it. Even if he blanks, he's going to blank eventually, of course. Don't feel too disheartened. A lot of people will probably be in the same boat, because Salah is just the most popular asset at the moment. So that pretty much concludes the video. My updated team selection, which is obviously very brief. The latest news and injury updates. Let's see what happens with Jamie Vardy later on, and anything else that may come around in the next few days. And of course, the top 5 captaincy options and the best free hit team you can make for Game Week 10. If you haven't already, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new, especially if you enjoyed it. And once again, a massive shout out to everyone who helped me reach 7,000 subscribers. As you can tell, probably, my voice has gone a little bit because I was shouting a bit like a mad one against Leeds United. It was a good game, especially in the second half. Of course, the first half I'd say lacked quality, but thank you very much, like I said, to everyone, especially the channel members and everyone else who's been commenting and engaging in the discussion. So appreciate all the support. Good luck with Game Week 10, and I'll see you next time.